our first reader. He grew up in Pittsburgh, went to school in Amherst, and then moved to Chicago and never looked back. She passionately hosts and co-produces Chirp Radio's The First Time, a live music and storytelling series held quarterly at Martyrs, and Psychotic Break, Chicago's premier mental illness-themed variety show, which is on the first Wednesday of every month at Shuba's, which the next one's on March 1st, right? Yeah. She has been featured on the Moth Radio Hour and tells stories all over town, sometimes formally. She's finally moved out of her Wicker Park loft, so let her know if you're interested in purchasing a 7-foot-tall paper-mache Yeti. Please welcome Jenn Sodini.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, everyone. Last year I went to Berlin, and I was told to go to Tempelhof Airport. It's a decommissioned airport, and apparently people use it, so it's like maybe the size of Midway, I don't know airport sizes, but people use it as a public space. The airport's closed, but there's just people like flying kites on the runway and like picnicking and stuff like on the tarmac. And it's a beloved public space, and it's so weird, and you know, former East Berlin. So my friend Jenny and I, who were there, we went there, and lo and behold, it was cold. It's March, there's people everywhere, flying kites, having picnics, and I look at my Lonely Planet book and see that there's a tour, and that Tempelhof was actually built by Hitler to be his like featured airport, but was decommissioned. And the inside is like preserved exactly as it was. No one's used it in years, so you could be like in a creepy, empty, you know, Nazi airport. So we start looking to find where this tour is, and we're looking around, and we somehow end up in the back, and there's these fencing, and we're sort of jokingly like trying to open doors that are clearly not the door to get in. And a guy drives up in a white van, and he talks to us, and I was like, hey, do you know where the tour is? And he's like, what tour? And he's like, oh, it's in the book, there's a tour. And he's like, there's definitely no tour. And he's like, what are you guys doing back here? What are you looking for? We're like, the tour. And he's like, there's no tour. And we're like, well, we'll just keep wandering around and looking. And he's like, okay, I'll take you inside. And we're like, oh, okay. So I thought he was like maybe a grounds worker who was just gonna let us sneak a peek inside the cool, creepy, old, empty airport. So we get in his white van. It's the last time I'll do that because I won't do that again. Or it'll literally be the last time I ever do anything, which includes getting inside a van. And he's driving us up, and he speaks English, but his German's a little broken. His English is a little broken. He's speaking, and he's trying to kind of tell us when you get in there, be confident or walk. You know, he's kind of trying to say, I wish I remembered his exact words, but it's basically saying, pretend like you're supposed to be there. And we're like, wait, what do you do? And he was like, oh, I provide catering for the refugees. And we're like, what? And we go past armed Arab guards, and he walks us into what is actually the largest refugee camp in all of Germany. They have over 3,000 refugees in the hangars, not the area, but the hangars where they would keep the planes inside this airport. So he brings us in, and he's like, okay, well, yeah, you can go around and see the road. First of all, the tour, now I know why he's asking. What assholes did he think we were that were from the United States? Like, oh, can we see the tour? He's like, oh, I guess Americans, you know, American tourists, let's see a tour of the refugees. So we were just shocked, and there were people everywhere. He's like, okay, well, you can walk back and forth in between the hangars and see the refugees, and, you know, just go out this way. If you walk out that door, you won't be allowed back in. And we're like, so we start walking. My friend's like, pretend we're aid workers, pretend we're this. And I was like, dude, just keep your head down. Let's just like be cool, walk in and out. So we walk a little around, and we are trying to leave. We don't speak a word of German. Inside, it is just hangar after hangar of these things that look like kind of like long cubicles. They're just like tents. It's like cubicles. And it is, you know, the ceilings are enormous. And there's, you know, children running around trying to play in these cubicles, but there's all these uniform white cubicles, and then just a bunch of people sitting at tables playing around with their iPhones and stuff, and some signs on the wall. So we're like, we gotta get out of here. We're not supposed to be here. And we try to get out, and like we go down the wrong exit, and there's all these guards everywhere. Some of them German, some of them Arab, and we go back out finally the right exit, but then it's blocked, it's barricaded with more armed guards. My friend's like, Jen, use your charm to get out of this. I'm like, yeah, this is great. So I'm like, hi. He's like, what do you need to do? And I was like, we were with the catering company. He's like, what? I was like, I'm trying to get to the road. And he's like, okay, because it didn't make any sense, but why 2 American girls were there like made no sense either. So we left, and Jenny was like, we need to not tell anybody about this. And then, of course, we like immediately told the next person we saw, who was a German citizen. And he's like, oh yeah, like they've had those refugees there forever. Oh, by the way, we didn't find the tour. I mean, we found the tour eventually, but like it would already passed, but we did get to see some of the, Nazi like regalia that they still had in certain parts of it. But this friend was saying like, oh, they've been improving conditions. Like they actually have one of the hangars set up for queer refugees who were getting some harassment. And apparently sanitary conditions were really bad. So they've started kind of busing them to a local gym to like group showers. I'm like, really, Germany? Like, oh, it's still the most efficient way. It's like so dark. And then I was like, they're so bored. And my friend Jenny was like, well, yeah, I saw that they were offering German classes, so that's great that they have something to do. He's like, no, that's compulsory. Like, they're not allowed to leave until they just, like, learn German. And some people have been there for over a year. Unbelievably, this was not the first time I've accidentally run into refugees. I was living in Hartford in the 1990s, getting away from a bad situation. And I was crashing with a friend who lived in a pretty high crime area. I was broke. We would amuse ourselves watching drug deals go down, and we'd watch like a coworker of mine got shot and killed a couple blocks from me. It's pretty serious. A cop pulled a gun on me once. It was a dark time, and I was feeling very depressed. I ended up calling a suicide hotline. I wasn't very serious about it, but I was feeling very down. And when the woman asked me on the line, like, why do you feel like you have reasons to live? I'm like, why are you? I was like, that's why I'm calling you. I'm calling a suicide hotline. So I took a couple Xanax and a, chug of wine, and I put in some headphones and decided to wander the streets, sort of hoping something bad would happen to me. I'm walking through this neighborhood with these sort of do not solicit signs everywhere. I run into this like group of really young white kids just wandering around cluelessly. I was like, what are you guys doing here? It's such a weird sight to see in this neighborhood. Now, most of them were children, by themselves, unsupervised. And most of them didn't speak English, but one was communicating to me that they were Kosovo refugees, that they decided to house in this neighborhood. Sort of no guidance or anything. I was like, guys, this is not the best neighborhood to be wandering around at night. And I was trying to tell them, and they were sort of trying to communicate to me that they had just gotten there, they didn't know what to do. They were trying to get a job at McDonald's. One of them was in college but had to leave abruptly. And they were really worried because they didn't know any English. So I would talk, and one of them would kind of translate for the group. And she said, can you teach us English words? I said, okay. So we started walking down the street with them behind me, like Moses or some shit. I was just like pointing out objects, and I was like, fire hydrant. They'd be like, fire hydrant. I was like, sidewalk. And I'm like, sidewalk. I was like, oh my gosh. And they asked me if I could come over to hang out with them, and I was like, sure. And I didn't, and I was leaving Hartford soon. And I just felt like such garbage. Here I am having this pity party. And there's all these people without homes, their dreams left behind, put in this neighborhood that's kind of unsafe, where, like a high crime neighborhood, we're like wandering around looking clueless. But I realize that now I think back on that time, and I think, first of all, that was like a legit mental health crisis I was having, but also how cruel and dehumanizing it was to pit that against someone with kind of my image of what a refugee is, like running from fire and bombs and escaping with just the clothes on their back, and, that actually, like, there's a whole mental life to these people. And who takes care of your mind? Or how do you take care of your mind if you are literally in a Nazi airport for a year with nothing to do? And that, why do we get to be depressed, moody jerks listening to Belle and Sebastian or some other emo shit, narcissistically obsessed with our own neuroses, but won't extend that basic human right to refugees. Thanks.